Jeremy's chain is off now. He wants to talk about free. Well, let's clarify because I think I went to break just saying free agents. I mean that the unrestricted free agents the Lions have.
Yeah.
These were guys the Lions have to make the decision if they're going to re-sign or let walk. Um, I'm going to focus in on a few of these guys here soon, but I want to start with a kind of game I played with our post-game show stream on Sunday, which is, and it wasn't part of the recording, so I'm not retreading ground. But let me pull up the whole list again from Spot Track, and I just want you guys to sit here. I'm giving you guys, you have all of the unrestricted free agents that the Lions has. That'd be like Nick Williams, Tim Boyle, Jalen Reeves-Maybin, Charles Harris, Alex Anzalone, Josh Reynolds, Cleve Freeman. I don't need to read the whole list. You have it in front of you. Go look it up on Spot Track. I am telling you, you have three of these guys who you get the guaranteed. You get the guaranteed that you will be able to re-sign these guys and bring them back to your squad in 2022. Three guys. Everyone else, you are putting up to risk that you might not be able to re-sign. Who are the three guys you want the guaranteed on?
I think it was pretty actually easy for me. I three jumped
because
to mind immediately.
It was funny because one name came up all the time with our post game chat, and then the some names kept coming up and up, but everyone had kind of a different 2 and 3. So I want to see what you guys come up with.
Three that jump off the bat, and this is kind of we're throwing price and all that to the side. Just like three guys I want back the most: Tracy Walker, Charles Harris, Josh Reynolds.
Ryan.
Period.
So I find that really interesting because I know we're throwing price and everything to the side, but you didn't name either of the linebackers.
I didn't.
Neither Alex Anzalone or Jalen Reeves-Maybin. And I think that from what we've seen out of Derek Barnes so far this year, that's just like I don't know. It's kind of like a tough sell. It's a risk for me because then you have to go pretty hard in both, trying to find free agent help to replenish that hole that would leave, but also the draft. And I don't know. So I totally am in agreement in Charles Harris. He's been the best defensive player the Lions have had throughout the course of the season. Number two, I am definitely intrigued to bring back Josh Reynolds, especially if Jared Goff's going to be the quarterback, because it seems like they have something going for him. The third one I'm going to say is I'm going to go with Aaron Glenn. Jalen Reeves-Maybin.
Oh, okay. I thought you were saying Aaron Glenn. We want to bring him back. He's not a free agent technically.
So I think my answer. I think my answer was Charles Harris, Alex Anzalone, Josh Reynolds. The point was that everyone in a chat was in agreement with one name, and it was Josh Reynolds.
Interesting.
Really?
That was the name that showed up every answer we got. Josh Reynolds was one of those. So I just find that interesting.
It is
because
kind
I
of
think
he's been good, but he hasn't had number one receiver numbers, and I guess that's not what they're looking at. Sorry.
He's the clear-cut free agent on the offense versus when I limit you to three, I think the answers on defense start to fray and you break down and you're trying to choose between Harris, JRM, Anzalone, Tracy Walker, and you don't there's like that's where it starts to. But Josh Reynolds at least. What's that?
You're like splitting the vote essentially.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I think there's. I do want to talk about the linebackers because you're right. Like Aaron Glenn spoke very, very, very highly of Jalen Reeves-Maybin. Even kind of let it slip. Like, yeah, he's going to contend for a starting linebacker job. And then a reporter had to be like, "Do you mean for next year?" And he's like, "Oh, he's a free agent." Well, yeah, I want all my free agents back. He kind of got caught like saying like he's running under the assumption it seems like that Jalen Reeves-Maybin is going to be back, and Alex Anzalone, also a guy that obviously this team really, really likes. I mean, Dan Campbell basically gushed about him every single press conference that he's active.
Brought him with him from New Orleans, yeah.
But I guess the reason why they're not on my list is I'm not as convinced that either of those guys are like guys that you really want to be starting linebackers on your team. I get that the Lions do not have any depth at that position. I get that, starting Derek Barnes next year is a bit of a scary thing. Like, I know we were all on the Derek Barnes train to start the year and he did some cool things in the preseason, but he hasn't looked great since. He really hasn't. And so, yeah, linebacker becomes a huge need if you don't re-sign both of those guys. If you only re-sign one of them, it's still a huge need. Even if you re-sign them both, I think it's still a big need because, again, like, I'm not convinced those guys are long-term starters on your team. And so that's why I'm not rushing to, the debating table, the negotiating table to get those guys re-signed. But I also understand, like, those are good guys to have on depth because I think with both of those guys, it's a character thing, right? They kept talking about Jalen Reeves-Maybin and how he grew up in the NFL as a special teams player. And when you have the love of the game that you do to be a great special teams player, that's the kind of attitude that you need to be a good defensive player. That's what you need, the kind of attitude you need to be a great leader in the locker room. And I think both Alex Anzalone and Jalen Reeves-Maybin have that. I just don't know if they have the talent. And Reeves-Maybin, listen, he's playing good football right now. He's playing spirited football. And maybe all he needs is another year under Aaron Glenn. And he does take a jump to be a legitimate starter. I think I have a little bit more faith in that than I do Alex Anzalone because I think we've seen the tip of the iceberg with him. Like he's going to a defensive system he already knew in New Orleans, and he's not an old player, but I don't know. There isn't much about Alex Anzalone that excites me. And I feel like people are forgetting. Like 2 months ago, everyone hated that guy, right? Like the first month of the season, he was playing horrible. Everyone hated him, and he got better, but he didn't get great all of a sudden.
Yeah, well, that's true.
So that's where I'm at in those guys.
So, sorry. I want to move on and maybe like, should we maybe like zoom in on a couple other guys here? I know you got some notes here on Charles Harris.
Well, yeah,
he said that, someone asked him, does Detroit have what you're looking for long-term? And he said, yeah, without a doubt. And like, he seems to be the guy that if there is a clear cut, like, yeah, this is a real good standout in your defense, it's Charles Harris.
Yeah, I feel like the last 2 weeks we've really, like, I think the media has like started to work ahead and asked all these players that are free agents and asked some of the coaches what they think about these free agents
for Detroit. Yeah. I mean, it's always been the question is like, this was the tryout year for a lot of these guys. This was a lot of prove it contracts.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. And Charles Harris,
and for them testing out the culture here too, being like, all right, let's see what it's like with Dan Campbell coming in, with his staff coming in. Let's see if we like it here. And some of these guys are like, yeah, I'm kind of vibing.
Harris is an interesting situation because the Lions have essentially springboarded his career. Like he is now a relevant name. He'll get some bites in free agency. The question is, how much is he bought in here? How much does he love it here? And yeah, he'll tell, I think it was the MLive guys on their podcast saying like, yeah, of course, like the Lions have what I want. They're a team that believes in me. They're a team that, he said very complimentary things about the organization. He said, even Brad Holmes like recommended a book to me in training camp, and that was very influential to me this year. And so like he has this emotional attachment to the Lions. I just wonder how much that is going to stick once the money starts coming in, and maybe the better teams start swooping in, and maybe he gets an opportunity to play for a championship type team next year. I don't know. He's saying all the right things, and you'd think he'd owe a certain amount of gratitude to this team for putting him in good positions to win and play better and rack up a whole bunch of sacks. But you never really know what's going on in a player's mind. So I'm in. Obviously, I think the Lions should have interest in bringing him back because we just said it. Like, you can't have enough pass rushers, even if the Lions go Aiden Hutchinson or Kayvon Thibodeau, and they get back a healthy Romeo Okwara and some of these other young guys start. You need more, and so yeah, I think the Lions should be interested. I'm just curious as to where Harris's mind will go.
I love Charles Harris's story. I think it's awesome. If he becomes more expensive than like, I want to say like $8.5 or $9 million a year. I know Spot Track has him with like a estimated salary of like 8.6 million a year.
Wow, really?
That's starting to get pretty expensive for a guy who's only done it 1 year.
Yeah.
And I think Charles Harris too. And I mean, dude, go get your bag, like go get your money, because wherever that might be, because like you said, Jeremy, like this guy, I mean, he isn't like a 1 year flame out from another team. He isn't a 2 year flame out from another team. Like, he's 27 years old. Like, this might be like his only prime contract that he gets. And I mean, what better season to have than the season he's had with the Lions? But I think you're starting to talk about a guy who's pretty expensive, who's only done it for one season.
That seems to be the theme, though, is a lot of these guys are around 27 years old who are looking at these contracts here.
Sure.
So
yeah.
You want to go down the list here? Let's see here, just real quick. Resign or let go. I think this will just kind of go a little rapid fire. So I mean, we've kind of talked a little bit on Alex Anzalone. Leadership is there, and everything. Jeremy, resign or let go on Alex.
I mean, I think you re-sign him, but you don't make it a huge priority.
I'm with re-signing him too, just because the Lions have nothing at linebacker right now.
Resign time or let go Tim Boyle.
I'll go first because I have very special feelings about Tim Boyle right now. Like a lot of people are just railing against a guy who only had his third career start, and you're talking about how bad this Lions offense is. Like, what better season to find out that Tim Boyle might not be backup quarterback material than this lost season, right? Like, it's the same argument for people who are like, well, what do you mean you want to see David Blau? Like, we know who David Blau is. I think we kind of have an idea of like who Tim Boyle is.
The David Blau people remind me of the Kellen Moore people.
They kind of do
back in the day. Sorry,
it's bizarre, but for Tim Boyle, nice knowing you.
You can get a developmental quarterback in the draft.
Here's the thing. I'm with you. I don't think Tim Boyle is a very good quarterback. I think he's learning a lot on the fly, and I think people underestimate just how inexperienced he is and how much that's affecting him on game day. But I also think he's not a very good, I think he's an inaccurate quarterback. But Dan Campbell said some very interesting things about him today. And let me read I know we're trying to go rapid fire here, but he says, quote, "There's something about this guy, and I think he's going to get better. I think these reps are invaluable to him. And look, he got put in a tough spot." Again, kind of bringing up that put in a bad situation thing. And then he says, at the end, "I'm not discouraged, but there is some stuff in there that I'm pretty encouraged by." Like and I know, again, coach protecting his players, that's not rare, but if you listen to that whole quote about Tim Boyle, he talked about him for like a minute straight. And it certainly didn't sound like a guy that was interested in just being like, well, we saw what he got. See you later. He sounds like a guy who's like, I see some pieces there. If we give him a little more experience, who knows? And I think I'm just trying to mentally prepare you that I wouldn't be shocked to see him resign.
I wouldn't be torn to pieces if he was. It's just whatever. It's backup quarterback. Who cares?
Yeah,
that's fair.
We were talking about this during a break. Like, I mean, I'm sorry. Like, you shouldn't be wasting this time on thinking too hard on backup quarterback. It's not. I think people assume that they're going to come in and save your season, but like outside of Nick Foles, when was that ever the case?
You know who can come in and save your season though?
What's that?
A super back.
Next one up.
I want to do hosting on this one. I want to
go for it.
I'm going to Jeremy first. Resign or let go, super back, and Walter Payton Man of the Year award nominee, Jason Kabinda.
Franchise tag that man.
What's the going rate for a super back?
I don't know. No, they're gonna re-sign him. Like they absolutely love this kid. He does a lot of different things for them, fullback, tight end, all that sort of stuff. Easy re-sign. They might get that done before the season's over.
Yeah, I think they re-sign him. Like, not also too like. I think we're doing this under the assumption too that there's going to be like free market bidding for some of these guys. Sometimes just the devil, like Jason Kabinda knows the Lions know him. It's just easy re-sign. Yeah. Okay. Well, I've got my host reins back from Ryan. Tracy Walker.
I mean, he's starting to play really good football. He's kind of cooled off in the recent weeks after kind of going through some injuries and things like that. But I'm curious as to see how much he's going to want, because I feel like he's certainly cooled off from being like the second PFF rated safety in the league midway through the season. But I think that the team likes him. I think he really likes Aaron Glenn and what's going on here. So I think that might be an easy re-sign too, depending on how much he's looking for.
Yeah. I mean, I want him to be back if the price is right. And that's a really easy answer, but I think that's the right answer for Tracy Walker. And it kind of, coincides with how I feel about Charles Harris, but if he wants to be here for the right price, I'm cool with Tracy Walker. Yeah.
Okay. Next up, and we're starting to get into the wide receivers now, Khalif Raymond.
This is an interesting one because he hasn't been bad. And maybe he's good for like wide receiver 5. That's also your punt returner. But I also think he's probably pretty replaceable. So I'm cool with moving on from Khalif, even though he's also like a very high character guy too.
Yeah, it seems kind of at odds with one another when you're like, yeah, bring back Josh Reynolds, but nah, I've seen enough of Khalif Raymond. Like there are a few weeks where like Khalif Raymond was the only thing going for the Lions, receiving core. But I'm with you. Like I don't want this to be too much groupthink, but like I think just go young at wide receiver. Like, I mean, we're seeing what is happening with Amon-Ra St. Brown. You know, if Brad Holmes at this point, like it's starting to become like a trend that he can find guys later in the draft. So why not use some of those draft picks and maybe find another diamond in the rough?
Let's go to the other receiver then. I threw this one in there just because I remember on the post game getting a lot of questions about how he performed in this game against Seattle. KhaDarel Hodge.
KhaDarel Hodge is an interesting one because it seems like he was a priority for Brad Holmes, and I know wide receiver was just a priority, like in the same way like getting Trinity Benson was a priority. But it might be recency bias too. He just had a great game against Seattle.
Yeah, five really receptions, 76 yards.
Yeah. But I don't know. You know what? The thing that's probably stuck out the most about him is like he's made some really good plays as a gunner, and he's made some pretty bad plays as a gunner too. So he's one of those special teams guys who, I mean, it's at the bottom of the roster. If he wants to stick around, fine, but I would let him go if he wants to go.
I think you re-sign him, and part of it is that he brings something different than what the Lions currently have. He's an outside receiver, right?
Yeah, big physical guy.
Yeah. And as you mentioned, he brings value on special teams that can go a long ways. And you know, I know Quintus Cephas was just kind of like catching on right before his shoulder injury or shoulder blade injury, but collarbone. But Cephas wasn't doing any special teams, and I feel like KhaDarel Hodge and Quintus Cephas could very much be a camp battle next year that could go down to the wire. So I think you bring back KhaDarel Hodge on he's not going to cost too much, and let them battle out for wide receiver 5 or wide receiver 4 or whatever it is.
And last one I have written down here, Nick Williams.
Nope.
See ya.
That's it? Very quickly. Okay,
yeah,
great.
I mean, I know. Here's the thing. Like, we probably shouldn't be so dismissive. He is very much a veteran leader in that locker room, and you ask any one of those interior defenders, really anyone on the defensive line, and him and Brockers are like the two first names that come out as leaders and emotional guys that help that team get along in a rough year like this year. So it's possible. Again, he's one of those locker room guys that I think the Lions really, really like. But in terms of production on the field, he's just not bringing it anymore. And so you'd like to see him get. I mean, you don't want to see the Lions get rid of all their veteran guys on the defensive line because then you're left with just a bunch of really young players. And we saw how they played this week against the Seahawks. But I don't see a way you can rationalize it too much unless you're giving him a very cheap deal.
I mean, and this is a guy who's, what his cap hit is like $5 million this year. Like,
yeah,
I mean, he's not playing up to that level. So,
yeah,
yep.
Did you get your fill, Jeremy?
So much fill. I feel satiated.
Satiated is all right. That's going to do it for us in the Pride of Detroit PODcast. Please keep those ratings rolling in, guys. We had a phenomenal 2021. Let's start 2022 strong. We got a long off season to come here, but one more game is in the books, and it's against the Green Bay Packers, who've already locked up. Have they locked up home field, Jeremy?
They have.
Yep. So they don't have much to play for.
No, but it sounds like they are still going to play their starters. Aaron Rodgers really wants to, and it sounds like Matt LaFleur said the early plan is to go that way. So not going to be an easy Matt Flynn game.
Not going to be an easy Matt. Wow. Well, hey, Lions, keep your fingers crossed that Jacksonville wins.
Go Jags.
Go Jags, baby.
Team Cap Brotherhood.
We'll see you Starside, folks.